Hey guys, wanted to go ahead and do a review of the Cadenza4 and to go from there. Shout out to the folks who recommended this to me. This is an amazing IEM. I absolutely love how this sounds. If there's anything I want folks to know about this, the Cadenza4 is a living example that you cannot trust frequency graphs just as they are. The reason I actually didn't want to buy this initially and why I delayed for so long is because this looked like a Blessing 3. Or it looked like a Studio 4. It looked like all these other IEMs I had. And I'm like, I don't need that. I already have it. It's redundant. And what I'm here to tell you is they sound nothing alike, even though they may look the same on the graphs. And this is such an amazing and special IEM. And yeah, I'll go ahead and kind of break it down. So the first thing is I check for bass, and everyone knows my first song I check for bass is BB Weekend, and basically the bass goes boom, 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 and it allows me to know what kind of bass is coming out of here right in the first few seconds, and the bass is on point. The voice is full. It's slightly tilted warmer on her voice, maybe about 10%, but the vocals are very full, and I'm like, with 44 seconds in, I'm like, dude, I'm keeping this. And then the next thing I want to test out Subbass, and this is the song I use, and I'm like, wow, there's a healthy amount of Subbass. The vocals are full and they're perfect, and I said this sounds like a realistic U-shaped sound signature, and that's a good thing. So what I'm trying to say is it's not like okay, so let's say, I know you can't read my chicken scratch writing, but let's say that's neutral. Neutral is like Hexa and Awful 1 or Magic 1, right? Typical, right? Typical sound. And then bright, like I would say, neutral bright is like Blessing 2, typical sound. You know what I mean? And then when you go like towards warm, you've got your Truthier Pure, and then maybe you've got your Performer 8, maybe you've got your Volume S, kind of like warmer sounding. This doesn't sound like any of these. This sounds like different. It just sounds realistic, is what I was thinking, which may not map like a straight line. You know what I mean? Like, so, or not straight line, but you know what I mean. It's kind of like, it feels correct, and it feels like everything is like, sounds right, but it sure as hell doesn't sound like a Hexa. It's just like, it's way more dynamic and way more realistic than a Hexa, even though it doesn't graph perfectly on the graph. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm like, dude, this is A+ good. And then the next song, there's a song by Justin Bieber that I check, and it's mainly just to get know where's his voice? Is he like deeper? Is he higher pitched? Is he synthetic? Is he full? So the vocals are on point. It's perfect. The bass is fun. The sub bass is super plentiful. Technically, the bass is about 10% above normal, but it's not a deal breaker. Justin's voice are not thin. No change in octave. In other words, his voice is not higher pitched and it's not lower pitched. It's exact. It's perfect. And I said, honestly, this mapped really close in the frequency graphs to other IEMs, but this sounds nothing like them. And I said, this is not bright, but it has shimmer. This is not dead on neutral like a Hexa. This is not warm neutral like a Truthier Pure. This is what I call realistic U-shaped. It's where things just sound the way they should. And then I check another song. It's Chris Brown. His voice is on point. It's full. And I said, honestly, this is a step above Tantrum Origin, Truthier Pure, Sennheiser IE200, Etymotic ER2XR, Blessing 2, Dusk, Analog, and Zigot Lush. So it's basically like, it's blowing that away. It's like, whoa. And I said, definitely leagues above the Blessing 2. But they almost map the same on paper. But this is way better than the Blessing 2. And I said, it has a very realistic sound. Just get this. I'm keeping it, right? And then, all right, so, and then the next thing I wanted to check is basically check flaws in audio. Whether it can determine if there's like sibilance, boxiness, all sorts of problems with audio. And I actually have a playlist of what I feel are kind of like flawed bits of audio.
Post-response EQs have a better stability associated with them.
Since the release of the Shure SM7B in 2001.
Now understand why so many of you love these two microphones.
And essentially, for the most part, in terms of sibilance, it's at regular volume. When you listen at regular volume, there's very low sibilance. But when you raise the volume, then it's medium to high sibilance indication. So what that tells you is if you crank the volume on anything and you listen loudly, you're going to hear a lot of sibilance. But if you listen normally, you're not going to get much sibilance. And yeah, generally you're only really going to get sibilance when you crank up the volume. I mean, I know that sounds but it's not, because there are quite a few IEMs where like I crank up the volume and you still can't tell there's sibilance. Now, this is one where if you crank up the volume, you definitely will notice you get sibilance. So, yeah. And one other thing that folks want to know about is like kind of what are my thoughts between how this sounds compared to the Softears Studio 4, which I absolutely love. And it's really hard for me to explain how they sound. Like they're so different. So I'm going to explain this in a very non-technical way. The Cadenza4, think of it like it's doing everything that you know, as in you know, perfect by the book. It's the perfect amount of bass. It's the perfect amount of, like fullness to the voice. It's not thin. It's not this. It's not that. Basically, this is the perfect amount of sub bass. Like everything is like by the book, like of what you know, right? It's just like from everything you know, it's like it's perfect. That's the Cadenza4. The Softears Studio 4 is more like you know all this and it's perfect, right? This is like, but you don't know this. You've never heard this before. And whatever you're hearing from the Studio 4 is like nothing you know right now. Does that make sense? It's kind of like, it just sounds like it just sounds like something I've never heard. It's just different, you know? Like I made a review like I think 3 days ago where I was like, it literally sounds like what sometimes you'll listen and it sounds like the singer is like right there, like right there, and she's singing right there. You know, it's like the way it just sounds. She's like singing right there. No other IEM does that. You know what I mean? So, like I said, it's like the Cadenza4. It feels like it's textbook. Everything's like perfect amount of bass, perfect amount everything. These are excellent. These are perfect for mixing, perfect for critical editing, perfect for enjoying music. Just really great. You know, overall, like absolutely recommend these.